In my work, I've come to see our understanding of the human soul as a kind of map. And for 100 years, the maps we've used have been helpful, but like any old map, they have to evolve. Today, we're going on a journey to see how those old, sometimes rigid frameworks are giving way to something new, something more expansive and inclusive. And let me tell you, it's profoundly changed how we practice therapy for the better. So let's begin. All right, here's the path we're going to take today. First, we'll start with the founder, Carl Jung, and the conflicts baked into his original map. Then we'll see the real harm caused by a rigid, binary way of thinking. After that, we'll witness what I like to call a heretical awakening, a really necessary rebellion. From there, we'll discover some amazing new archetypes for the modern soul. And finally, we'll see what therapy actually looks like in this exciting new world.
So first up, we have to start with the man himself, Carl Jung. And look, there is no question, the man was a genius. He gave us these incredible tools like archetypes and the collective unconscious. But, and this is a big but, he was also a man of his time. His work was absolutely shaped by the cultural biases, the shadows of early 20th century Europe.
And this right here reveals a huge contradiction at the heart of his thinking. On the one hand, he could look at ancient Greece and see the vital role of homosexuality, even calling it a key part of education. But then, in his own psychological theories, he'd frame it as some kind of developmental immaturity. He saw its importance in history, but he pathologized it in the individual. It's this awkward compromise that really gets to the heart of his early limitations.
You can see this bias so clearly in how he read the classics. When he talks about Plato's famous myth about the origin of love, he only mentions the androgynous being, the half-male, half-female creature. He just completely leaves out Plato's other two beings, the all-male and all-female ones, who were looking for their same-sex halves. It's like he edited a foundational myth just to make it fit into a neat heteronormative box.
Now, this kind of theoretical bias doesn't just stay on the page. It leads to real, tangible harm. When these conflicted maps are treated as absolute truth, as dogma, they create prisons for the soul, especially around this rigid binary of masculine and feminine.
And here you can really see a clash of worlds. The traditional view saw gender as fixed, biological, binary. If you didn't conform, something was wrong with you. You were psychologically split, maybe even possessed. Contemporary theory, though, understands gender as fluid, as a social construction. And here's the crucial part. It locates the problem not inside the individual, but out in the world, in systemic prejudice. The issue isn't the person, it's the prison they've been put in.
And this is the human cost of that prison. This is from a letter written by a trans-masculine patient about his analyst. She was so locked into the old way of thinking that she couldn't see his transition as a necessary, healthy step. To her, it was just a symbolic problem, a sign that his inner world was out of whack. That kind of dogmatic thinking causes profound harm and leaves a person feeling completely misunderstood.
So how do you break out of a prison like that? Well, it takes a courageous act. Some might even call it a heretical one. But this isn't just about critiquing the past. It's about a necessary evolution. And frankly, it's one that Jung, a pretty big heretic himself, would have deeply understood. We hear the word heresy, and we think it's a purely negative thing, right? An attack on the truth. But the original Greek word, hairesis, just meant choice. It was about the freedom to decide, to choose your own path. So when queer and feminist thinkers started challenging the old Jungian orthodoxy, they weren't just destroying something, they were making a conscious choice to create a new, more truthful psychology.
And this act of choosing is actually part of a long intellectual tradition. It goes all the way back to the 19th century, when psychiatry was literally inventing categories for sexuality. It includes Jung's own massive, heretical break from his mentor, Sigmund Freud. And it all leads up to the post-Jungian turn, where a new generation of thinkers started the brave work of taking apart the old systems and building something new.
Okay, this is where our journey really turns a corner. We've challenged the old maps, so now we get to enter a period of discovery. If the old archetypes aren't enough to guide us, what new concepts can help us explore the soul's vast, newly revealed territory?
Well, first you have to name the invisible structure that limited everything. That's the heteropatriarchal complex. Now, this is not an archetype. It's a cultural complex. It's the system of thought that says the heterosexual, patriarchal view is the default, and everyone else is either invisible or a problem. Once you can name it, you can start to work through its influence. And if the heteropatriarchal complex is the pressure from the outside, the queer complex is the wound it creates on the inside.
This is a name for that soul wounding that LGBTQ+ individuals experience, that internalized shame and fragmentation that comes from a lifetime of societal rejection. It's the psychic injury that we are now finally learning how to heal.
So it all comes down to this. The old binary of Anima and Animus, that idea of the inner man and inner woman, is just not enough. It's too small. It can't possibly describe the true complexity of the human soul. A new map, a new guiding archetype is absolutely necessary. And here's a proposed answer from the theorist James Perrin, a new archetype called the Animum. And this isn't just a small update, it's a fundamental shift. It replaces that simple binary with a dynamic trinity. So instead of a fixed inner man or inner woman, the Animum represents the constant, unresolvable, and creative tension between three core parts of our identity.
Let's break this down. The Animum is a trinity of forces, all in a constant dance. First, you've got sex, our physical body, which is never static. It changes with age, diet, medical interventions. Second, you have gender, our social roles, which shift all the time depending on our context. And third, sexuality, our identity and desires, which are also always in flux. The Animum embraces this great multiplicity. It sees identity not as a fixed point, but as a living, shifting, dynamic landscape.
And this is so much more than just theory. These new maps fundamentally change how we practice psychotherapy. They open up brand new paths to healing and to what Jung called individuation, that amazing process of becoming your most authentic self.
So in the therapy room today, the focus shifts completely. As clinicians, we listen to the client's actual story. We don't try to fit them in a box. We decouple archetypes from biology. We understand that a non-binary identity isn't a problem to be solved, but a valid path toward wholeness. This means supporting clients in their real-world lives, honoring their journey, and acknowledging that gender-affirming care can be a crucial part of their individuation. Really, it's a move from analysis as judgment to analysis as accompaniment.
And what's so remarkable, and a beautiful twist, is that you can find the seed of this entire affirmative future in Jung himself. He wrote this in 1950, and it's a shockingly progressive statement, basically supporting what we now call gender-affirming care. His ultimate test was simple. Does it lead to more happiness? It just shows that even inside the founder's conflicted mind, the capacity for this compassionate evolution was always there, just waiting for us to find it.
And so we end our journey here with an open question. The old maps, they showed us a world of simple binaries, but the new maps reveal a soul of infinite variety, a great multiplicity. So as we leave behind the prison of the binary, I want to invite you to wonder, what vast, undiscovered worlds exist within you? Thank you for joining me.